continuing our look at tarot decks. Today it's all about the Waite Smith. I'm Beck Birrell from My Inner Witch for TABI, and I would say that the Waite Smith deck is probably the most recognisable deck in the world. It was published in 1909 and created by Arthur Edward Waite, and the artist was Pamela Coleman Smith. Now both the Thoth deck and the Waite Smith deck were created by members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And by all accounts, Crowley, with his Thoth deck, really thought that Arthur Edward Waite was a bit of a pompous... Well, he was very public in his books about how he thought that this deck was childish and superficial. But no one can deny that it is probably now the most recognisable deck and most influential for other decks on the market today. There are esoteric references in this deck, but they're nowhere near as complex and as complete, in my opinion, as in the Thoth deck. But as Arthur Edward Waite said, they're hidden in plain sight. So if you know, you know. But you can see, for example, in these two cards, we quite clearly have references to Western Kabbalah. There's also a lot of numerology, there's the elements, there's astrological associations, and of course the Kabbalah of the Western Kabbalah. There's also a lot of Christian symbolism in this deck, and that is because Waite himself was Catholic. The intention of the artwork does incorporate these layers of esotericism and the mystical and the associations that the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn were associating to the tarot deck at the time. So if you are going to use these references in your reading, this deck will support those layers. And the theatrical action scenes in the minors that we see in this deck also make the tarot deck very, very relatable for people to really pick up a story, and for your clients also to sort of see exactly what's going on. So it's very good to, start a conversation of what do you see in this card. But some people love this and some people find that it hinders their own reading style. You can use this sort of more theatrical side of these cards to actually enhance your readings. You can use them as a technique in your reading. You might want to see whether, for example, there's often a foreground, a central figure, and a background in these cards. And you might sort of look at the foreground and say, what's at the center of this situation? What is behind the scenes in the background? And what's in the foreground ahead of us? And of course, we can also use the numerology to work out whether we're right at the start of a situation or whether we're at the very end of it or whether we're nearing the middle of a situation. And we can use the elements, of course, in the suits as well. So all these layers are built into the intention of the artwork of this deck. And modern decks which take inspiration and were influenced by the Waite Smith are really now looking at this artwork as the sort of foundation, and they're making the artwork far more diverse, inclusive, and suitable for a broader audience. This deck really is a product of its time and its social space in history, but it is worldwide loved and adored, and one of the most recognisable and derivative decks on the market today. Let me know whether this is one of your favourites or whether you prefer the modern take.